Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJNTV, Disc Jockey News TV. Tonight's event planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, NLFX Professional, Promo Only, and the DJNTV Insiders.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
Are you sure?
I think so.
Okay. I will say this, for those of you, before we get into the whole highs and everything else, and for those of you that have ever wondered why it's always this, are we going? Are we not? Watching John and all the little intricate things that he has to do just to be able to put this out to everybody. It's not a simple thing. And I learned that firsthand the one night, and all I was trying to do was Facebook. So I can only imagine all the extra little pieces. But without further ado, hello everybody, and welcome to your Monday night show. We are John and I. We decided we'd come hang out with all of you, and we want to thank you very much for taking an opportunity on your Monday evening. You could be watching basketball, but you're going to come join us, and you're going to have some fun with us. And we're going to be talking some wedding trends, some things that we have noticed already kind of playing a role into the weddings that we've had this year, as well as taking a look at some of those that are coming down the road, some of the feedback we've been giving already, as well as talk to a few other DJs to kind of get their input and to say, yeah, this is happening. Like we gotta definitely make sure we're on top of that. So John,
yes,
this I got a question though. Where did this come from? This idea tonight?
This is something that we like to keep tabs. When even on a regular night show, we see things and we like to talk about those, whether it was Shani talking about music, some of the things she's been seeing on her dance floor, or things we've picked up either. So it's just really kind of that time to update some of the things we're seeing. And instead of just dropping one here, one there, it's like, well, let's just put them all in one little box, put a bow on it, and then here we go.
Sorry. You say box and I cannot stop thinking SNL. Sorry.
No, it won't be that box. That was an interesting though.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So as we've kind of hinted, a lot of great things tonight. John and I were kind of laying out some different pieces tonight. So I will say some of these are things that I've not run into yet. So I'm kind of excited to talk about these and get a better jump into that.
And we got almost 20 different topics we're going to hit, so we're going to be moving through.
So we probably should get started.
Okay, so let's start it off with our first one. The trend of going from big weddings back when we first started to today, smaller weddings. Dan, what's kind of an average you would say for a number at your weddings for the last couple of years?
It's been a downward spiral. I would say 150 used to be about my average, and I'm probably down to around 110, 120 as far as an average number of guests.
For those of you in the chat room, please just kind of throw a number out there. You just kind of think of your last half a dozen events. Put a number in the chat room. I want to see what you guys are seeing also. Back when we first started, 350 people was considered a small wedding. I did weddings with 600 people. 500 was kind of a 450 to 500. I looked at some of our contracts. They were all like that. It's like the DJ was charging $250 and there were 450 guests. That's the way it was back in 1990.
50 cents a guest.
Yeah, that's the way we had it. But it's over the last year, we've seen that trend going down. And this summer, with some of the weddings I do, for some of you who have heard me talk about this, I've been kind of reducing the number of weddings. This summer, I pretty much have a wedding every weekend I just started this past weekend until the end of time, it seems, in 2019, until fall. So I've got a lot of them going on, which is great, kind of. But the trend I'm seeing is that some of my weddings where I'm in there and I'm getting paid a premium rate, I have some ceremonies with only 15 to 20 people, which isn't unusual. But I have wedding dances with 60, 50, 40, 90. My biggest wedding dance, this past Saturday, there were 70 people at the dance for the dance part. And if you take out the 12 that were in the wedding party, it was just that's what was there. That's what they had for that particular. So we're just seeing these smaller, more intimate weddings, and I really wonder how far this is going to continue to go. Will it get to the point where with these smaller events that they just decide that DJ entertainment isn't necessary because it is such a small, intimate event? That's a concern to me as I kind of look at the trend. When you have 400 people, you need something to entertain them. When you have 70 people, will you need to entertain them, or will you get 50? Yes, we've done weddings. Lori, one of her first experiences with a small crowd, she had a wedding of 32 people. That was it from beginning to end, from ceremony, dinner, right to the end. All 32 people were there for this whole night. And she worked her butt off because she was having to basically engage them, time and back and forth and interact with them. Are those days, though, when that small of a crowd, are they going to say, we can just stream whatever channel or put a playlist together and call it good? And that's going to take a percentage of our business away as more and more weddings are getting smaller. I don't know.
I also found it interesting, though. So I've had two particular ones this year. One, which was 200, which is probably the largest I've had in recent memory. And then I've got another one coming up next month, which is pushing 300. But in both cases, they're older couples. Like the ones this is like a second marriage, like, definitely go around. They have kids, even grandkids and stuff like that. But the first one was somebody in like the late 30s, maybe early 40s at most. And this was the trend. So I almost wonder if it's also something to do generationally, the idea of close-knit friends. That's who I'm going to hang out with. And then I'm going to share it with everybody social media wise, but I'm going to have a close-knit togetherness. Yeah. I hadn't thought about the idea of like, they just might not have us. I will say, though, I've also noticed as the weddings have gotten smaller, they've also gotten shorter, which, makes sense. You don't need, 6 hours to get through, 400 people of eating. You get, you can do it in 4. So.
Yeah, we're seeing a variety of different numbers being shared in the chat room. So thank you guys for doing that. If you're watching out there, by the way, this is being multi-streamed to 9 different spots tonight. The main chat room we're watching is out on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/discjockeynews, that will pop up the actual player and you guys can check it out. Pascal, you're exactly right. You have to be that good DJ entertainer. And truthfully, to do the 60, yes. That one that Lori did at 32, I don't know if I could have done that at that stage in game because she has such an outgoing personality and likes to engage people. It was a natural extension for her. For me, I can do it, and I can do it much better today than I could then, but it would have been a struggle just because of personality. Yeah. So anyway,
definitely look for ways to entertain that's not just dancing.
And I think that's going to probably be the thing is to for those situations, if people are seeing that happening, is to be able to bring more of an entertainment value. Saturday night, the mother of the bride, she said, the reason we hired you is because we wanted more of an entertainer than we wanted just someone to play music, which was great. And I could do that, except we had a conflict or something happened early during the dance, and that messed up the first hour and a half of the dance. And that's for another time. So yeah, even the best laid plans sometimes can go astray. So let's continue on. The next one, Dan, now this was the one you threw out, the focus on the simple. What we're kind of get us started with that one.
So one of the things that when I sit down with a couple and I start talking about just, trying to get their vision of what they want, often, you ask them the words that, come to mind when they think about their wedding, and they'll talk about fun. They talk about upbeat. They talk about dancing. But I've been getting an extra word thrown in every so often, and it's been this simple. We want to keep things simple. And I asked them, kind of what does that mean? Well, we don't really want to do a bunch of the events, and we'll talk about some of that later. But we don't, we're not interested in uplighting. We're not interested in, photo booths. We just want to keep it simple. We just want to we want to get there. We want to dance. We want to have some fun. We want to party, but we don't really care about all the extra ta-da. And so that we're going to touch on some of these other points a little bit later, with some of that, but it just really seems like the goal is they don't want to be, I don't want to say they don't want to be center of attention, but it almost gets that type of a feeling with that simplicity. They want to keep it simple.
See, I wonder if part of this isn't because the generation coming up hasn't had their methodology of dealing with stress is so much different than it was when we were growing up. We learned, many of us, we played in sports, and that was kind of a common thing almost everybody did at some level. And there was stress involved with performing in a sport. And yet today you'll have half the kids who have never stepped on any kind of a sporting field. So they don't have methodologies and coping skills to handle some of the stresses. When they get to their wedding and they look at it, okay, we can plan this big thing and it's going to be all this stress and all these different things. And how do we deal with it? Whereas the word simple is, they can almost kind of parallel that to kind of a stress-free. We're not going to be wanting to do 20 different things. We want to just do a couple, make it just as simple as possible so that we can come through and enjoy. They're also, I think, not wanting to put people out to make other people have to work a ton harder, which is to a point is like, you're paying me to do, we want to make it an easy night. No, you're paying me to do what I can do and we can create this. This is what I do. No, we just want it to do simple and to do. So I think there's a lot more the psychology behind what you're seeing with that, Dan.
Well, I think it's also, you touched on a couple pieces there, but also from the standpoint where they don't want to do work themselves.
Yep. And I'm
not
saying that in a bad way.
What was that?
Not saying that in a bad way. It's just that I think that they're prioritizing their time and knowing that putting one more thing on their plate is just going to be not a good idea.
Yeah. I've had them really jump at ideas that I've thrown at them. And then we get into, a month out and it's like, hey, by the way, I still kind of need this. Oh, never mind. We're just, we don't want to do it now. And it's just this pullback on, and again, we just want to keep it simple.
Yeah. Brainstorming and talking about a dinner activity to control the clink. And we've got this really neat idea. And, 6 months out, it's like, that's going to be great. It'll work for our family and it's going to fit us and we're going to love it. And then as we get closer, it's all of a sudden progressed and it's changed. And now all of a sudden we're having it so people basically are going to come up and, pick up a cowbell and ring the cowbell up at the head table when they want to see Kiss. Well, that's a long way from what we talked about 6 months ago, but that's what they chose because it's a lot simpler, they say, or, what they were talking about. So I think that fits.
Yeah.
Okay. Continuing on. This has been something we've seen over the last number of years, talking barn weddings that have been coming on in our part of the world. And I know, Dan, you've had it there too. Is that a lot of farmers who have gotten out of the business have converted their barns, their cattle barn, and their hayloft area into a reception facility. We've got probably 5 really nice ones that have popped up here over the last 10 years. Some of them are actually air conditioned now and have the things, so they're actually really nice little venues. And some of them are just basically they clean things out and they threw decorations on the wall, and you get what you get. One of the trends that kind of is building off that. And by the way, I now have a sound system and the gear for the barn wedding. I've got a tote that I forgot to take with me this past weekend because I didn't think I'd need it. That is designed that it has a fan. It's got a portable air conditioner in it. It's got a couple of that, and it actually has my little cooler in there, so I can go and put ice and things in there. That it's the cooler I use for the show, because if I take that cooler out, my kids will use it somewhere else, so it stays with my DJ. But it's my barn wedding or outdoor wedding gear. One trend I'm seeing, though, that I've got it with a couple of the weddings is that they're using someone's space. They're using someone's backyard. They're using someone's lake lot, and they're having the wedding an outdoor wedding. Now, not that that's not unusual. It's happened a few times over the years, but this summer, I think 3 of my weddings are doing that, and next summer, I've got a couple of people who are talking about that too. Just doing things in a non-traditional banquet hall. I bet I don't. Maybe 2 or 3 of the weddings are in a traditional banquet hall that refer me on a regular basis. It hasn't happened this summer because people have booked me for these other weird locations. Are you seeing similar things in your market there, Dan?
Well, kind of a flip side. So with what you're saying about having more on location of people's property, so friends and things like that are like, yeah, you can put a tent up in my yard, and I've got this beautiful landscaping. Yeah, come have your party here. So I am seeing more of that coming up, but I'm also seeing where it seems almost like a turn back from some of the barns to the point that we're going back to some more of the traditional banquet rooms. And I'm not sure really 100% why that's happening, but I've started to notice an uptick, and not just the ones that typically would refer me, but on some of these other ones as well. And I think for some aspect, I know of some of the barns that, kind of with what you were saying, they cleaned it out, they threw up some decorations. Some of them have kind of gotten slapped on the wrist and said, until you do X, Y, and Z, you cannot have events here. It violates some code or whatever. And the farmers are just like, well, screw it. I can't put that money into changing this over. So we're not going to have it. So some of that is happening, but also it just seems like they're getting away from the decorations in the barn isn't enough. And yet the really nice ones have progressed financially to putting them above what the banquet rooms were. And so it's, let's go back to some of that traditional, and we can decorate it, we can do it, and we can, have the look that we want. And for a lot, I keep using that simple word. A lot of these banquet rooms are done. There's not decorating we have to do. We don't have to set it up.
Yeah.
We pay them to set it up. So it goes back again to that simple idea. Definitely, I don't want to say it's a huge swing back, but I've noticed this year I'm back in some venues that I used to be in a couple years ago, and I'm in less barns than I was.
I wonder if part of we're going to get to that where people are looking and they're like, we love the look of the barn, we love the outdoor feel, the rustic feel, but the reality of watching or being at weddings in 90-degree, 70% humidity, with a dew point in 100 and whatever degree temp range, where it's just a heat index at the 100 and something degrees. They're going to get to the point where they're like, we can't have grandma at our wedding in a situation like this. And if people are just going to weigh out the, rustic, beautiful outdoor thing with the reality that, grandma can survive in the local Holiday Inn banquet room, grandma can't survive out. I don't know if that's going to come into the picture or not. I've been in some barns, as Jimmy said, he hates barns, and I've been in those variations of those barns up here. They've just been nasty, and some, not so bad, but.
Well, and I think the best, the ones that are the banquet rooms that are going to succeed in making that transition the fastest are the ones that have a grounds or property that you can still do the ceremony outdoors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having that being able to pull is going to help that turnaround for them, I think, a little bit faster than the ones who are just, locked in the middle of the city. And the only way you're going to have the ceremony there is if you're having it in another room.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't get that outdoor feel, that sunshine that they're hoping they're going to have for their wedding day.
Yeah. That's a big point. That's actually headed into our next one, where we're talking about the person officiating the wedding. Back in the day, it was pretty much in a church, clergy were handling the formalities. And now we're seeing very few weddings in churches, even in our very strong Christian area here. We're seeing more and more people who are having a non-clerical member, whether it's a friend who has, or a DJ. I mean, myself, I'm doing some weddings this summer where I'm going to be officiating, but it's that move away from the church, and it kind of fits in with that where they want to have a ceremony in a cool location. whether it's a rustic location, out in the middle of a hayfield because they're farmers and the hay, their first crop or second crop or whatever it will be is off the field and they wanted to do it out there. But it was a destination ceremony. And I wonder where that's going to, where that's going to go. Are we going to continue to see that? Or is that going to be something where we see it kind of circle around and come back into the churches? I don't, this one's a tough one for me. I didn't jump on the officiating thing. I've done a couple of renewal of vows, and there's a couple of people who were married that I did the officiating, but I wasn't legal to do it. So they got married by the local court administrator, whatever it was. And then I just did the fake version. But I didn't jump on this right away because I thought that trend of, getting away from the church was going to be something that would circle around and come back. And I'm not seeing it coming back. What have you been seeing, Dan?
I don't see it coming back anytime soon. I really don't. If you follow, without getting into a whole theological discussion and religious discussion, but if you follow that, a lot of trends is, the generation that's coming through right now, especially, has kind of vacated a lot of the church setting. So I see where I do see it potentially turning is when you have more clergy that are willing to do the ceremonies off location.
Yep.
And as those situations become a little bit stronger, I could see that circling around more. But again, here we go back to that simple word that I keep using. It's a lot more simple if I do one location for everything. I don't have to have my guests meet over here at the church, and now I have to figure out how to get them over here to this banquet hall with people who have been from out of town, and they've got to I don't want that stress. So I'm going to do everything in one location. And so again, that swing around, I see, clergy being involved again, because they're deciding that they're going to say, well, okay, it doesn't have to be in this building.
Right.
As long as I go through all the other things with them.
In Minnesota, they also have this part on when you buy your marriage license that you can buy it for this price if you've had marriage classes, which is $100 cheaper than what your marriage license costs if you haven't had any marriage classes. I could see something like that maybe leading back to the clergy, because you're going to have some of the clergy who will offer a marriage course that you could take. And of course, that's going to save you $100 here. It may cost you a little bit of money, but it's probably not the worst idea to have a marriage course if it's done and done properly. I could see something like that pushing back into, but there's, I can think of 4 different churches in our area where they're pretty much sticklers and for the pastor to lead, go out and do a ceremony out in the backyard, unless it's a church member, a good, longstanding church member, it probably wouldn't be too favorable for them to do it. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic when you get into that. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of goes. And I know some of our DJ friends some of the people in the chat are doing more. Scott Carroll has talked about that. He's doing quite a few ceremonies now, and a couple of others who are now toying around with actually getting out of the DJ, putting that as a back burner thing, because they're doing more ceremonies, and they can do a ceremony early and they can do a ceremony late on a Saturday and make more money than they could as a DJ. So we'll see. Okay, so continuing on, and we kind of somewhat put these in a semi-order so that they would be kind of logical to the progression of the day. So now we're going to be kind of getting into the room more and getting into some decor and some different elements of it. The next one is some of the events that couples are doing where they're having the event in the round. If you've ever been to a concert where the musicians, the stage is right in the middle, and they have the audience all the way around. Think of that. Whereas you will have the head table, as an example, typically they call that type of a head table where they're all seated around the head table as far as the wedding party as a king's table or a harvest table. And that's in the middle of the room. Then you have the guest tables all the way around. So yes, there are people sitting behind the backs of the bride and groom, and they're also sitting behind the backs of all the wedding party at some point in time. Somebody is. But the idea is that they're encompassing the bride and groom in that situation. Then the head table gets knocked down. That becomes my dance floor, which some of us have seen those horror, oh my God, can you believe where they put me as the DJ? Well, you're going to see more of that, I think, as we continue on, because of that concept of having the focus and everyone having that moment around them. Now, as a DJ, I've got to figure out how I can get sound out there properly, how I can get lighting into that environment, and how I can make that in the round experience out there for their first dance, or for that, how I can make that dazzle and pop. And that's something. I have one event right now that is scheduled, but it's a much bigger thing in different locales. It's a struggle. This is where this is where the totems are coming in, is to be able to do that. And I don't know, have you been hearing anything about that in your neck of the woods, Dan, yet?
No, that one, when you had mentioned it, that was one that was completely new to me. The only thought that I have, we are in a kind of a unique situation compared to where we were, say, 5-10 years ago, when it comes to sound, when it comes to lighting. The ability to do wireless, the ability to do Bluetooth connected lighting, things of that nature. So much more reliable and beneficial and usable than it was a few years ago, so that we don't necessarily have to shoot from the back of the room and try and get over top of everybody, if we can strategically place it to where we're not creating, line of sight issues maybe for some of the people. But having those totems or tripods or whatever you're using close to the dance floor without running 8,000 cables,
sure,
and amongst the people. I definitely see that helping to be able to do that. But yeah, that let me phrase it. One of the things I think that's going to be beneficial for me, it's going to be hard for some of the venues in my area to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to pull it off with any fluidity. So that'll be one to watch, though, for sure.
Yeah. I've seen some. A couple of years ago we did our first one that was kind of a hybrid, but as they continued and they're seeing the success at that particular venue, they've been pushing for more of that. And now I've got a couple of other venues that I've been hearing that are going to be doing that. And if they're doing it here, that means that somewhere else they're doing it a heck of a lot more, because we're not usually the ones who come up with trends. We just kind of follow them. That's doing flyover land. The next one, balloons. If you guys haven't seen this or haven't experienced this, balloons have become a major decor thing. It used to be, back when we were starting, the only time we ever talked about balloons at a DJ event was New Year's Eve, and it was a balloon drop. I don't know if you guys ever had one of those, but we had a couple of them, and yay, they were so exciting. And we hired someone to come in. They put all the balloons up in this mesh, and there was one. Okay, you grab this one string, untie it, and then yank it hard, and it will go, and the mesh will open and everything will fall. Well, yanked it hard, nothing happened. It just stayed together. So we went over and grabbed it both sides, and we're pulling, and then what we didn't know is that the balloons on the bottom were still full. The balloons on the top, most of them had deflated because of the heating system in the building had warmed them up, and they had all kind of expanded. And then once they cooled down, they deflated. So we had, I don't know, I think there was 500 balloons for the balloon drop, and it probably took up the space of, a third. Anyway, but balloons for decor. We've seen arches made out of balloons. They're making different kind of decorations, 3D decorations with balloons. And I'm not talking balloon animals. They're doing red balloons of different sizes and shapes and making kind of a bubble decor around the room. But they're not using the cheap blow-up balloons you can get at the dollar store. They're using a nice quality balloon that looks really nice. So you guys have seen somewhere they've had balloons with little LEDs inside them. Well, these aren't those balloons either, because most of those are kind of cheap balloons. These are balloons that are meant to be there and last, and they're going to last for the night, days, weeks. Closer to the Mylar, but they're not Mylar type balloons. This is an interesting area, Dan, because some of our decorators here don't want to touch balloons. And the idea that as a DJ, if I could add a balloon part to my uplighting, this could be an interesting area that might be something that DJs out there who are wanting to, kind of dabble into this arena might be something to look at. And I wonder if we're not going to see in the next year or two some companies coming to Mobile Beat, DJ Expo, that are selling balloon decor kits, where you come in there and it's like, oh yes, here's the archway package plus the head table, the whatever, the swags, the balloon swags for your head table, and all that. You can go and buy all these things and then offer them as upsells. I don't know. I think that
We have somebody local who's been doing it for. He was a DJ and stuff like that. I think he still occasionally does DJ, but for the most part, he's been doing this type of events for quite a while. I have yet to see him show up to any weddings, but I've seen other types of events, other type of specialities, and school dances, etc. Big, exactly what you're talking about. These elaborate decorations just made out of balloons. Yeah, that's a lot. I don't know.
yeah.
He doesn't DJ much now because he does so much with that. So there's definitely a market for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, so just a food for thought for those of you out there who might say, this could be interesting. For those of you who wanted as a kid to be the guy or gal making the balloon animals, this could be your thing.
You don't have to wear face makeup
And
or wear funny shoes.
Although you could. I mean, if you like the shoes, wear the shoes. Dan, I'm going to switch those two. I don't know if you saw that.
I think so.
Going to events for a number of years, the colors, they had their colors, and then probably about 5 years ago, I was having more weddings that were really getting white. I mean, a lot of us were, because all of a sudden we were wanting to have our speakers white. We were wanting to have our lights, white, and you've seen the Evolve 50s in white, and all, every company's coming out with white versions of their speakers or lights. Saw a thing from American DJ. There's like 20 different lights in their white line, pearl line, I think is what they refer to it as. They're out. Well, the trend that's starting to come on and is being talked about nationally is going back to, or actually going to, an all black, not a kind of a mix of colors. Basically, 99% black with only a little splash of color to make something stand out. Otherwise, it's pretty much black on black. It's like Johnny Cash is doing your wedding. Johnny, hey, what colors would you recommend for my black?
There's only one color.
Yeah, black. So the black events is kind of an interesting thing. But then, Dan, you were saying that some of the specifically, if we were buying those white gear, that there's situations where you've walked into that would have stood out.
Yeah. So I'm not seeing all black, but what I am seeing is walking into these weddings lately, expecting white and getting an ivory. And the ivory's not one of the colors. It's not like, one of the things I ask my couples is, what's your wedding colors? And I'm not getting ivory as one of their colors, but yet linens, tablecloths, different decorations are having this ivory built in. And I have a white facade that I use from time to time. And I feel weird. To me, it sticks out,
Right.
So I've just been like, well, forget this. I'm just going to go all black. So I could understand. I'd be a little nervous, I guess, in some ways, is if you were assuming that you were going to have a white setup, or that your white look that you have would fit in, and then you show up and it's ivory. To me, it would almost be like you're trying to blend in, but you're clashing.
I've got one wedding that is headed in this black on black direction, and they had actually seen my Evolve 50s in white. And one of the questions she had when she was pre-booking, she's like, do you have other speakers that are black? Because those won't look good at our wedding. And, who would have thunk? Because we were all like, woohoo, let's go white. I want white facade, white this, white speakers. I mean, I was actually looking the other day for a light tree in white. And it's like, oh, you can scrim it. Well, yeah, but wouldn't it look cooler in white? No.
That would look cool in white.
It would, but now I may not want to do that. So continuing on colors, one of the colors that it's a few years ago, amber was like the hottest color. That's why you were seeing amber in every light fixture. And then in the fall, it's like, oh, we want fall colors and we want amber lighting and we want to make it just beautiful and this. Well, a color that's becoming popular, and if you haven't run into this, you're going to, is people wanting to use rust as a main color, kind of that rusty look, that reddish orange, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's a rust. And why this is important for us is that for those of us who do uplighting, how do you create rust color with uplights?
Red and amber, maybe.
Maybe it depends on a fixture, because there's different.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
because the rusty orange color, two different shades of red, it's like, oh yeah, that's okay. I don't feel, if I get a red and one that's a little more pink, I'm like, oh, I'm okay with that. Two different shades of orange, I feel like I'm been violated in some way, shape, or form, because orange just does not go together with other orange very well. It just doesn't play well together. this could be an interesting thing when you've got somebody who says, oh, yes, this is our color. I'm not sure if I need to bring lights in and put it next to something that's that color and see if we can match or how we're going to handle that. But when that time comes, great. But for me, I haven't had that yet. But it's something that you see talked about in different Pinterest things is that, oh, we love this color. Yeah. Okay.
I wonder why. Is this kind of a trend to that rustic chic? I mean, you had kind of hit on, maybe some ideas of a trend for different relationships, but I'm almost wondering if it goes into that rustic chic. All right, we don't want the barn look anywhere anymore or as much, so we're wanting to use these colors because they're more in that same vein, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
A couple suggestions on ways to mix them, but
yeah, in the chat room. Obviously, the OxyClean isn't what. That's not how you mix. He's talking about people who can't wash their whites and they become ivory. Is that what? Jimmy, that probably says something about
talking about making rust color. Okay,
I think Jimmy, that might be saying something about your clothes washing skills. If you knew that your whites become ivory, you need OxyClean.
He just stays up and watches the late night shows. That's all it is.
He does. He likes those infomercials. Continuing on here, because we've got a few more things. We're actually moving along pretty well. I'm kind of surprised. I was thinking when we got to about 20 topics, we were going to be here for a while. Cake. Cake is still a part of weddings, and it's a head scratcher for me because this past weekend, we got to have cake, and yet 2/3 of it sits on the table. People don't eat it. The high sugar content and all that, whatever you want to call it, they just aren't into it. So cake mapping was a big thing a few years back, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's so incredible! We got to do that." And some couples were jumping on that, but now you're seeing places like the Knot and David Tutera and those guys not talking so much about that. They're showing things like what Nadia Cakes is doing. Companies like that on Pinterest, where they have created these beautiful, elegant wedding cakes that are standalone beautiful. They don't need uplighting. They don't need centerpiece lighting or anything to that effect. They are just an incredible cake that looks fabulous. So you're seeing that trend going on. And then, Dan, you mentioned that you're seeing a trend, and I've also seen this with the cakes going away because of maybe some of the reasons we said before. What have you been seeing in place of cakes then?
I have one wedding. They're not doing anything. They're not sharing a dessert of any sort. Now, are they going to have a dessert on the table? We didn't really talk about that necessarily, but they're not doing any event with it. But others, what I'm seeing is just we're gonna have cupcakes. Mm-hmm. We're gonna share a cupcake together. That allows them to have. One of the things I think has really been a key is they're allowed to have 10 different flavors of cupcakes. Where with cakes, you might have a new flavor per tier, but that was it, and you're that's only if you're lucky type of thing. Or you'd have one little cake, and in the back would be all the real ones.
Right.
But I've noticed a lot more trend towards just cupcakes. It also makes it just easy because then it's also like we don't have to wait for somebody to cut it. We don't have to wait for it to get served. We cut ours. Help yourself. And I've even had some say, we don't even care if they wait.
Yeah.
As long as they don't touch ours, as long as they don't touch the ones that are designated as the bride and groom cupcakes, they can have any of them that they want right now, when they walk into the room. So I think it's just been more that trend. But then you were saying, what a unique spin, not cupcakes, but rather cookies, I think.
Yeah. We've actually got and I've seen it nationally and on Pinterest also, is getting custom-made decor cookies that have been more of an artistic balance of sugar and beauty. And I've got a gal who makes cookies just down the road here, and I've been referring her to many people in this in our local Facebook wedding group. For the brides who are looking for, hey, I'm looking for a cheap this, cheap that. Well, we've been dropping her name in there, and she does a wonderful job. She is so busy right now that she, about 2 weeks ago, she posted that she's like, I am not taking any orders. I can only make so many cookies in this amount of time per day. And I am booked up now until like November, that she's going to be making cookies full time from here until November. It's a neat thing. People really have jumped on that because they can have it, that says, John and Lori's wedding and the date. And it could be this beautiful little whatever shape we'd want it to be, picture of a Huey Lewis album, but we could make it whatever we want it to be that would fit our style. And it's quick and easy and small, and people can take one, and it's not the cake piece that has a shelf life of 3 hours. Cookie, I could eat it today, I could eat it tomorrow, I could probably eat it next week, and it's still going to be absolutely fine. So I think alternatives, whether it's nothing or a cookie or a cupcake, we're going to see more of that, which I like the cupcake myself, because the cupcakes, every time there's been that, at the end of the night, there's generally boxes of cupcakes left. And I've brought a few boxes of cupcakes home over the last few years, which means that the next day my kids are on a sugar rush. They're just kind of like, what happened to that dozen cupcakes Dad brought home last night? Oh, the box is in the garbage. Okay, there are only 3 of you awake so far. What? Okay.
But it's much easier to bring home a couple cupcakes than it was, try and walk out with a couple pieces of cake. So I'll take those cupcakes.
Quick story on cake.
Although,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, Howie said he and Jimmy had a pretzel pyramid with dipping sauces.
Oh, see, that would be cool.
That would be right up my alley, because I'm assuming a nice soft pretzel.
That would be very. Except if you get somebody who's like got really gross fingers and they get their fingers in the gook, and then you're like, oh, I don't want that anymore.
Just how to ruin it.
I know. That was that strawberry thing, where the guy's like, oh, strawberry, and he goes and he's got chocolate all the way up his hand. Oh, look at there. And it's like, oh God, that's gross. Okay, so anyway, quick cake story. So I did a wedding where the bride was. She loved different flavored cakes, and she had about 20 different flavor of cakes that she loved. And she had a cake on each table, and they were, the little banquet tables. And there was a different cake on each table that would serve, I think maybe it was about a 9-inch round, what have you, 2 layer. And they were all so there were probably 40 cakes in the room, and I think maybe there were 3. Every cake there were 3 cakes, so if there was about 40, so let's say 39, so there were probably about 13 different flavors of cake. Some people absolutely loved some of them, and she was like, oh, yes, everybody cut a little sliver and go around and you can mingle and try different cakes. From that wedding, I ended up bringing home, I think, 4 different cakes that weren't even touched because of, there were cakes on every table. No one did. And so one of them was this like chocolate with this, it was a chocolate cake that had like a marshmallow cream inside of it. It basically was like Rocky Road without but it was in a chocolate cake, and then it had a hard shell chocolate. Oh, it was absolutely fabulous. It was fabulous. That one on the way home, because I was really hungry, and it had already been cut up, and I had one of the pieces, and it's like if I could eat this whole thing before I get home. Yeah, granted that was
cut out the piece, and then eat the rest of it.
No, they only sent 1 piece. Why are there 4 boxes in a truck? I don't know. Okay, next one, cocktail time. This is actually an area, Dan, where during that cocktail time, there was a period which it seemed like people wanted to do games and activities and wanted to do a lot of things. And then that's what was my claim to fame, was doing all these games and such. I've just seen this completely disappear. But you brought it up. Now, are you seeing more of this coming back, or what are you seeing?
Well, I'm not seeing like my interaction creating games. I'm not talking about those style, but necessarily I'm seeing a lot more kind of backyard party type things.
Okay.
There's cornhole set up, can jam, the life-size Jenga boards, things like that, where they're utilizing this outdoor aspect that they've done from the ceremony. And then before we move in, they're having the cocktail outside as well. And so they're just utilizing, okay, we're in a yard, so we want something fun, we want something upbeat, but we're also going to be playing these games. And I've seen some DJs, as a result, are picking up this as one of those things that they offer and that they rent, is these games that you can now bring out and have as a part of it. And not, like you said, not necessarily, or contrary to what you used to see with the interaction, but just having those pieces available for people to just sit back and have some fun with it.
You're exactly right. That part of it, I didn't even think about it from that aspect of it. If you guys, I think I made the video go live. There's a warped hole game. The video that I shot for it is on This Chucky News, I believe, somewhere, or maybe Instagram. But what it is like a cornhole game, but instead of the board being flat, it's got waves to it, and it adds an extra element. What's really kind of cool about it is that they can vinyl, put your logo or your name on the things. And it becomes this kind of a cool thing without spending a ton of money. You could either rent it to your couples, or you could offer it as an added bonus for that kind of dinner time. Because I've been seeing, we got a couple of requests for that, which I've got some old cornhole games that we've taken. We've also taken the one with the little string. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's got the 2 golf balls and a string, and you throw it, and it's on a PVC tubing. I don't know what that's called.
Ladder ball.
Ladder ball. Thank you. Yeah, so those kind of picnicky games that could be just kind of used during that fill time. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that is actually something people have been asking about, especially with the outdoor events. I missed that one completely. Good catch. Let's see. Continuing on, we've got 5 or 6 left here. The sparkle introduction, the entrances. We've started out back in the day where people like the little sparklers and woo, and that kind of thing. We've moved to the cold sparkular things where it depends upon where but it's this little fountain device that shoots up that, and it's something that you can put your hand over and it's not going to start on fire, different things with that. When we first saw those a couple of years ago, I was thinking that these were going to be like so cool, and it was going to be adapted, and people were going to be like screaming, "Oh, I've got to have this." It hasn't happened. And to add to that, the customers that people have seen, they're like, "Oh, that's cool," but I want a simple introduction, kind of a thing. And then you flip to the other side of some of the DJs who've gone and invested in these and are bringing them to their market, and then you get the venues, flame, pyrotechnics, fire, building, bad, warrant, concert, bad.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen. They didn't take off like I thought they were going to, and I think part of that is because the sparkular company themselves basically priced themselves way out of the budget. We want to make this exclusive for only a few people, so we're going to overcharge people and make a ton of money off the first ones, and then after that, we're going to tell everyone to screw themselves, almost word for word, except that one part. It's just one of those trends that I think might be there, but if it is, it's not going to be there much longer. Is my feeling on this.
And I think combination of you hit on it with the simple. We want to keep things simple, but also from the standpoint of I haven't even decided to even think about going down that path, because just the venues that I play in, the venues that I'm a part of, I just don't want to have that fight. I mean, I hate to sound it. I hate to say that way, but nobody's beating down my door to say, "Hey, I really want that effect," to make me go, I really want to have that fight with the venue of going, here, I'll stick my hand right on top of it, or whatever. Just to show you, put a piece of paper, whatever, to make them show that this is not going to be an issue. But yeah.
Yeah. So I think if you haven't invested in them, be aware, but I would not add them to my repertoire unless I knew that I had a venue that I could use them at enough to pay for them before I'd even buy them. And not planning to use them in year 2, because you could maybe get through one season before they're going to be banned, but I think after that they would be either passé and no one wants them anymore, or they're going to be like, "Oh, we can't use those anymore." So, continuing on, disappearing wedding traditions. This one's actually is in a chat room. I think it was Day just mentioned a few minutes ago about not seeing some traditions. So, what kind of traditions are you not seeing, Dan? And then we'll kind of work our way around here.
Well, first off, let's hit on the one that Dave even mentioned. He said the bridal party dance. I can't remember the last time I did one of those where you have the bride and groom and you've got your bridal party with whoever they're matched up with, and you get them out there. And in fact, I got to the point where it was like a no every time I did it. So I just completely took it off my planning form because it was not even happening. Money dance, and some of these might be also, geographical. Money dance was always a big one for us, where you'd have, sometimes they call it a shot dance. You get the couple out there and people go out and dance with them, pay money and take a shot, and that's the deal. That one definitely has been gone by the wayside, but some of the bigger ones, which has kind of been surprising to me, garden bouquet, and we talked about that, but even sometimes the parent dances, and not just, when it first happened, I kind of would ask the question, is this the relationship that you have with your parents? No, we don't really want to do that stuff. We just want to get into the dancing. And I'm like, okay, well, we could really create this emotional moment. Is it maybe you want something a little bit more than what you've seen in the past? No, we don't want to do it. Okay. And I think the key word tonight, we should just label this simple.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's again what they want to come back to. They want to keep it simple. And that means taking out everything that they feel they don't have to do.
And I think that's a great way to say it is the removal of the extras. If we don't have to do it, let's not do it. Yeah. Dollar dance, fewer. Or the garter, this past weekend was the first garter I've done in 2 or 3 years. That's gone. Bouquet has been there, but really downplayed. Wedding party dance, gone. I haven't done that. Even at times when we've wanted to, they wanted to do one someone did last year, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this. Okay, great. And then try to get the wedding party there because there's always those. Yeah, so it just hasn't happened. There's other variations of some of the traditions that have gone away. I haven't seen as many blessings of the meal as I had in the past, and I think that kind of goes back to the religious aspect of today's couples. That's just not important to them. Many times when I'm sitting down and talking to them, it's like we get to the point. It's like, will you be having a blessing of the meal? No, I don't think so. Okay, great. I understand that, but I want to make sure you're aware. There's older guests who might view this and they might want to because this is and they are. And I just want to make sure you're aware of that. So you're just thinking of everyone in the room and how it's going to be perceived. Oh yeah, we're okay, and they okay, we're good. We're good. I just don't want to have a surprise where all of a sudden you don't do it, and then Aunt Betsy comes up there and say, if God isn't going to bless the meal, I'm going to do it right now. Had that. Right over it, just screamed it at the top of her lungs, and she stopped the catering company from serving, and she's like, did the blessing. But anyway, so yeah, wedding traditions are changing. I think there's some little quirks that people are seeing on Pinterest that they're adding or changing that way with taking some things and tweaking them. And part of that's going to lead into the next one, which is some embarrassing situations. Before we started with Nick Spinelli, by the way, that was a show right ahead of this one. It's a part of the DJNTV Insider area. If you are an insider, go out to djntv.com/training. That's where once you're logged in, that's where all the videos are, 100 plus videos of different things. Tonight, Nick was giving some tips on social media, and he had some great content, great things in there, and a couple of them that I actually took some notes and said, "Ooh, I gotta utilize that concept because it wasn't something I had thought about or done." But before we went on, we were talking. I mentioned to him is that I've got couples this summer who are wanting to create moments to potentially and most likely embarrass each other during the course of the night. And this has always been completely faux pas in my book. I would never do anything to set up a situation where I'm embarrassing anyone in the room. That's just not what we do. Probably comes back to my teaching days where you don't do things like that because if you do, there's going to be parents calling principals, and the principals are going to be like, Mr. Young, what are you doing? And you're embarrassing little Joey in the room there by saying, so we don't do it. Yet, I've got couples who are wanting to do things that could be construed as embarrassing. An example would be, and you guys have all seen the video, where they blindfold the groom and they're doing the garter and they swap out and put a groomsman in there. Or, hey, identify your wife. And then, he's feeling the legs of 10 different women. And that the chance that, yes, he probably might pick her out, but if he doesn't, how embarrassing that would. And is the reason I'm seeing more of this, and even Nick mentioned he's seeing things like this, is it because they're maybe not so much they're wanting to embarrass each other, but they're wanting to break from tradition? I
think they're wanting to do something we'll call different, than what they've seen at their previous weddings.
And it could be that, they're all in that age group where we've been to 10 weddings and they've all been the same. Let's do something fun. Let's take cake and mash it up your nose.
Yeah.
I don't know. As this past weekend, there was a couple of things that happened that in my prior consultations when we were talking to couples, and I haven't had this conversation in a couple of years with me not wanting to have them do specific certain things because it was common back in the day when the garter was tossed and the bouquet was tossed. Then the guy who got the garter would go put the garter on the leg of the gal who got that, and those types of things could be construed as it could be hugely embarrassing and inappropriate depending upon who those people were. So we stopped doing it. Now I'm thinking I'm going to have to go back and have these conversations again about the potential of that moment. And maybe it just doesn't matter because they're like, hey, we want to do something different, and that's different. and being a little edgy is fun. I don't know. And then I'll tell them to get off my lawn. Okay. Let's see. Let's jump to photo booths versus selfie booths. This is something that if I've been following kind of on some of the photo booth chat boards, which if you guys think there's a lot of Facebook chat boards for DJs, the photo booth world's got as many or more. And the difference is that in their groups, that there's photographers in there who think that strictly photo booth companies don't know what they're doing. Then there's photographers in there who think that DJs who own photo booth companies don't know what they're doing. Then there's DJs in there who don't think that the photographers know anything about entertainment, and they don't know what they're doing. And then there's probably somebody else who doesn't think any of them know what they're doing.
Yeah. Which is probably about right for all of them.
Pretty much. But I have not had, I've got photo booth and selfie booth. Selfie booth being an iPad-based thing where they can send it right to the internet and to their phone. Photo booth with the printing. I've got the capability to do both. I have not had a person in the last probably 4 years now, 3 or 4 years, that have said, "Can we get a photo booth because we want to get through the prints and such?" I'm sure people do that, but I haven't gotten that call. This past weekend, I ran the selfie booth at the show. And Sunday there was one inquiry, and Monday, this morning, there was a second inquiry from people who were like, "Hey, I loved what you did at the wedding, and that selfie booth was really cool. I want to hire that for our event." Is the photo booth? Are we moving away from that because of the printing becoming obsolete? I don't know. What are you seeing over there?
People just haven't seemed to want them. I mean, one of the complaints that I often have, when I'm bringing up photo booth, my guests don't want the strips. I've got enough strips already. I've been to, kind of we talked about it, they've been to a bunch of weddings. They've all had the photo booths. I don't need more strips. So my boyfriend and I putting on funny hats and, making some funny faces, at the thing. But in the flip side, it was actually funny. 2 weeks ago, I had a wedding where I showed up and they're like, "Oh, the photo booth's gonna be in that corner." And I kind of said something to the groom. I'm like, "Thought you guys didn't want a photo booth." And he's like, "Yeah, we didn't. The bridesmaids got it for us." And so I was like, "Okay, well, that explains why you turned me down on it." But then what was funny was during the course of the evening, it was a huge hit. They were over there and they were having a good time. So I think it's one of those things where they don't consider a lot of the aspects of it, or they don't look at it in the way that they think, but then they turn around and they have a good time with it. And I think the strips ideas are really kind of going by the wayside because it's just one more thing. It's one more thing to hang on to. It's one more thing to be a part of. Whereas, especially now, I mean, everything's digital. I mean, think about this. When was the last time you printed a photo that you didn't hang up on your wall?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Good, like you've got family photos that you probably occasionally will do that. They're probably formally done, and those are the only ones you have printed out if you print those out.
Yeah.
So our groups, our couples, and that are really the same idea. So they don't need the prints. They don't want the prints if they can get them another way. Really, that's what they want them for, anyways, just to share them and put them someplace digitally.
Yeah, very true. So for those of you looking to invest in one of those areas, if you haven't, food for thought. And if you have one and not the other, it might be something to think about also. So continuing on, I'm going to change this one a little bit. Looking at different entertainment packages or different entertainment options. When we first started, it was bands, and we were the bastard child as DJs that were against, "Oh, you're a DJ. Well, you're taking all the business from a band." Then at some point in time, more on the East and West Coast, it became kind of a mix where DJs and the bands would play and the DJ would fill in. Now it's gotten to the point where our friend Brandon Heverilla, a lot of you have followed him, he's doing a DJ with a percussionist, or some people are doing DJ with a guitarist or DJ with a whatever, where they're combining the two together. Some have actually gotten to the point where they're doing a DJ and a three-piece band, and the three-piece band is playing in with some of the songs, or they're doing a karaoke version. Just a lot of, but basically combining a live element with the DJ side of it. And then somebody mentioned, said this, and I was actually going to talk about this because Michael, my son, was actually doing this where he would go during dinner time, and he was doing table magic, doing his walking magic around and doing things. He'd go up to a table, and then go to the next table. That there's more to that live entertain or that entertainment side of it, where people are wanting to see that live element more than just a DJ spin music. And have you had people call and request anything like that, or inquire about that, or have you not seen that yet?
Not the live musician mixed in. I've not seen that. Nobody really around here is doing that. I have one guy who's doing it and not doing it well, so I think that's why nobody's really seeing it.
Yeah.
The other side, though, I have heard of, hey, do you know of anybody? And it was like caricatures, which was interesting. That's something very different in my viewpoint. But they were looking for something to add on during dinner and during cocktail. Again, looking for, like you said, looking for that other entertainment piece, that other way to have some fun with it. That's different.
And I think that's probably simple and different are going to be the two words. We've added two words for tonight's show.
Two.
So yes, if you're watching this to this point, all you needed to do is think simple and different. And you're good. The final thing on our list, and we're after 10 o'clock here, so this has gone. We got a lot of content here for you guys. To end the party, we've had the sparkler. I figured that one. We had that exit. We've had this people do the cell phone thing, where the paparazzi one where they took the cameras and they were flash as they were leaving. Well, one that's going to be coming to your area, if it's not there already, is a smoke bomb exit where they're going to set. They've got little smoke things similar to the size of road flares. And once they're lit, they will burn at different colors, and they'll burn for, 30 seconds, I believe they're more 30 seconds to a minute. And you have your walkway lined with those, light them up, and then they walk out, and they've got these colorful smoke going on, and they're walking through, and it's like, yeah. I can't imagine a great photo coming from, oh, and here's a picture. I see this glowing smoke, and here comes the couple right now. Oh yeah, sure, I see him right there. Is that them? Oh no, I'm seeing Satan be coming through the smoke. It's just his face is just emulating through the smoke. No. So the smoke bomb exit may not be something you've seen yet. You're going to hear more about that because that's really hot in the Pinterest world right now, because sometimes you can get that really cool picture where that colored smoke is staying low and then they walk through it and it's kind of like the colored walk on the clouds. That's cool. Smoke them in their face. Can't see what they're doing. Not cool, but I have
a photographer friend of mine though that she's doing it. Not related to weddings yet. And so I'm going to reach out to her and be like, hey, you might want to get on this if you haven't yet. But she does it in just like her portrait type work that she'll do in the middle of cities. She'll just have, and she uses it more behind them.
Oh yeah.
To kind of create more of a backdrop look, as opposed to the idea of walking through it. Or even the idea, or I've even seen a couple where they're holding on to it. They're holding on to like the flare type of look. And so they've got color bursting out from what they have. So, I could see if it's in the right hands, definitely done and done very well. And I could see that one definitely taking off, especially for these summer weddings where, at least in my area, sometimes we're ending and it's just starting to get dark.
Oh, nice.
To where that pop of color would actually be like a cool effect and not necessarily needing, almost like it's a little too early for sparklers. That
would be cool. I think, yeah, if there's enough daylight and such, that would help tremendously. And then if it would stay low, but
yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see the color run. I know the kids have been participating in that, and that's become a kind of a thing. I just can't imagine throwing color at a bride's dress, and then that stuff.
Or the rented suit.
Yeah, some of that color doesn't come out. Ethan had my third grader. He had some of it that went in the back of hit him in the back of the hair, and he was a little sweaty, and that took probably 4 days of him, washing his hair every night before that color left his scalp. It's like, are you washing your hair? And the next night when he was washing, he's like, Dad, I'm doing this and it's not coming out. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, some of that stuff's nasty. So, well, I think we made it to our list, Dan.
Yeah.
A lot of information.
We did a good job.
Yeah, we had a good list there. So for those of you watching the video live here, if you click refresh on the video, the list of all the different things that we talked about is in the in the description of the video. So all of our topics, you can go and check on that. And if you're watching it later, you've watched to this point, so now you know where everything is anyway. So I can't really tell you that, you can skip some of them and find a topic you like, because it's just not the way to do it.
But when you want to rewatch it, you don't have to remember the complete order. You can look and go, okay, I'm there. Oh, this was after it, so I can skip ahead a little.
That is the way I watch Netflix series. Yeah. Oh, that episode sucks. Okay. Sorry. All right, Dan, take us home.
Well, I do want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Hopefully you picked up a couple ideas, a couple tidbits for you to either keep an eye out for, or maybe even to possibly invest or save yourself from investing if you just realize that's going to be a one and done. This season's all I'm going to have out of it and be gone. Either way, hopefully you learned a couple things. I do want to encourage you, of course, to make sure you're checking out the shows later this week. A lot of great content still to come. We're only at Monday, and we've got a whole week of stuff. So make sure you're checking out those different shows. I guarantee you they are going to be great, great topics as well. And then we will be back next Monday. What that will look like, we will let you know later this week, okay? So on behalf of John and myself, thank you very much for having a good time with us. We had a good time with you.